Here are 3 things to consider from today's video. Where's the best place in a video to put a call to action? Where can you find a virtual assistant? And where can you find some awesome co-working spaces in Northern Ireland? This is what you're going to find out in today's video. The event was organised by Jennifer McWilliams from Antrim Enterprise and Martin Gilchrist from Gilchrist & Co. You can actually check out Martin Gilchrist's episode of The Time Seeker's Way in the YouTube description below. Details of the speakers are in the YouTube description also.
Please join me in welcoming with a round of applause Suzanne Murdock.
The goal is simple, really. It's very much to open your doors, gather your communities, and celebrate everything that co-working makes possible. It's not about flashy events. It's very much about connection, collaboration, and that sense of belonging. And today, because that's exactly what I want to talk about, and why, for me, it comes down to creating people-led workspaces with confidence and heart. I'm a business coach and mentor for micro-business leaders and neighbourhood co-working operators. And I'm also co-founder and operator of the Hub Newry, which is a co-working and flex office space that we set up back in 2012, long before co-working really existed in Ireland, or I certainly didn't actually know what it was at the time. We've grown very much organically through trust, relationship, and real care for quite a diverse member makeup. We've got remote workers, freelancers, very much local businesses, and they all really contribute to quite a vibrant local ecosystem. And over the years, co-working has really, really evolved. But for me, the heart of it has always stayed the same. It's very much about heart. And when you build from values, confidence and heart, everything else seems to flow that much better. So why does this matter in, I guess, the messy middle bit of micro business? Running a small business can be really rewarding, fulfilling, but it can also be quite lonely, quite isolating, exhausting, a bit chaotic. And when you're running a business as a small business owner, there's so much to be doing. You're juggling so many hats. You've got to do the delivery, manage the sales, the admin, the cash flow. You're trying to stay visible as well, the whole marketing element, and navigating that whole changing political, economic landscape as well. And quite a few people feel like they're going it alone. Well, it can feel like that anyway to a lot of people. And the truth is, your environment, the people around you, the energy of your space can make an awful lot of difference. And it can be that thing that lifts you up, or it can also be the thing that drags you down. So the spaces that we work in really matter, not just practically, but emotionally. And we don't just need a space to sit in. We need that safe space to hold us, to breathe. And we need all of that encouragement and someone to really back us along the way, whether we're a solopreneur or we've got a team of 20. So when we talk about people-led workspaces, for me, that's far more than just a desk, a Wi-Fi, good coffee. It's about feeling safe to really show up fully as yourself, not just trying to fit in. Being seen not just as business, but nurturing the individual for who they are. And it's a place where community really matters. It's not about competition. And it's also where support isn't a tagline, it's the culture. So I've been in quite a few spaces throughout Europe over the years, and a lot of them are absolutely amazing. But some of the ones you see on Instagram, they've got no human feel, even though they look amazing on Instagram, because design doesn't replace that human care. And what matters is how people feel, how they feel when they walk in the door. And it's just about placemaking, that feeling of togetherness. So that's what we tried to create at the Hub. We did a survey very recently, and we asked them, what do you want to see more of that we're already doing, but they want more of? And it was really clear. It was about business introductions, local community engagements, and more chances to be visible, to be seen, to be involved, and to be heard. So very much about engagement and connections. It really confirmed what we already felt, and we've seen across Europe as well, is that people want more than just that functionality. They want connection, they want confidence, and a workspace that's really natural for them. They want to feel seen and heard in spaces that work for them, not just to be tolerated and to fit in, which I think a lot of businesses are like. And they want to be recognised for the individual they are, with their own unique personalities, their strengths and their magic superpowers. So it isn't a trend, it's very much a human need. And if we talk about confidence, not the loud kind, but the steady, grounded kind, for me it looks like starting before you feel really ready and trusting your gut and your values, listening closely to your community, and being agile, moving quickly. So speaking up when your voice shakes, So I avoided talks like this for many years, and it really did hold me back. But the co-working world has been so inclusive and really, really belonging. And I guess I've kind of grown with the industry. And it gave me that space to feel quite grounded. Not just as an operator, but just to be who I am, to be quite natural. And that's given me the confidence, bit by bit, to take those small steps and grow. And I think the key thing is just to keep showing up and taking those baby steps. So confidence isn't always bold. It can be quiet persistence. And confident spaces create confident people, and they build resilient businesses. We build trust through open doors, check-ins, flexibilities. We're very much into mental health, first aid training, and that strong culture of well-being. And we recognise people who are that little bit quieter, the introverts, and we make sure that they're comfortable and they're working in calm environments and they feel safe and able to achieve their best in ways that they want to work. The other thing is supporting locally, as we are doing today, is very much a part of who we are. We will collaborate with schools, with businesses, with local charities, and we also care really deeply about the whole sustainability side of things. So we've got a roof garden with solar panels, biophilic design, and energy benchmarking, all woven into how we operate.
Next, I have the honour of introducing Alison Matthews. Alison is the founder of, I have to say this right, Virtue Alley, and she helps business owners to free up time by managing and automating admin tasks.
When I started my business nearly 10 years ago now in 2015, I didn't know anybody. I lived in Luxembourg for 10 years. I just come back to Northern Ireland, bought a car, bought a house, first time car, bought a house, started a business, and was one of the first virtual assistants in Northern Ireland, and went out and thought, unless I get myself known, I am not going to have a business. And now everybody jokes and goes, Alison knows everybody. But I did that on purpose because I realised as well that unless I had a big network of people around me that I could refer on, then I wasn't going to grow either. So I'm very delighted to be here today. Well done for all being here on EU Coworking Day. So give yourself a pat on the back for being out networking already. And the theme, as we heard, is building relationships through conversation, connection, and collaboration. So today I'm going to touch on those 3 points and share a little bit of my business history and give you some actionable tips to help you as well. So Martin, actually in one of our prep meetings a few weeks ago, he said that conversation, you can't have connection without conversation. And I thought it's such an obvious point, but actually it's so true. So I'm going to start with conversation. So is there anybody in the room here who's come from a farming background? Yes, couple. I grew up on a farm as well, and my dad, he loved people, he loved chatting, he just loved banter. And he used to drive my mum crazy because everywhere he went, it took him hours, because no matter if he went to get fertiliser or look for gates, he got talking to whoever it was, and he knew everybody. And that, I'm going to mention why that's important. He knew everybody, and he started talking, and then they'd go out to the field gate and they'd stand and look at the cows, and they'd talk about the weather and the grass and all these kind of things. But he knew everybody, and he built that network up. And for ourselves as well, when we think of all the things that could happen in the lifetime of the business, you need to have the global network if something happens. When I set up my business, as I said, back in 2015, there weren't very many virtual assistants. And I had come across a lady called Kate Porteous, who some of you might know in the room. And I could see on social media, Kate seemed lovely. She was in Kirkcudbright. She'd set up as virtual assistant, and she was in a Women in Business programme. And so I was sitting in my new house one day in a new armchair, and I thought, I'm just going to phone Kate. I'm going to phone her and see how she's getting on. And I remember vividly sitting with the phone, in the window going, oh my God, what if she doesn't want to talk to me and thinks I'm some kind of weird competitor stealing all of her business? And so I phoned her up and said, Kate, I've just started as a virtual assistant. I can see that you started. How are you getting on? And we had a great chat, met up for a coffee, and then we each invited another virtual assistant that we knew either side, and we started to meet up quarterly in the Sprint at Dubbies, because that was our sort of midway point. It was really what we could find. And out of that collaboration, we all ended up referring work to each other. And I ended up writing a book with 2 other virtual assistants about how to become a virtual assistant. And I think there's things like that, and I know lots of other lovely virtual assistants here too, that I've worked with. And I think when you open yourself up to those opportunities, so much work and such wealth of knowledge as well can come out of collaborations like that. And we're very lucky today to be in this space.
Last but certainly definitely not least is Martin Irvine, the director of Accelerator Productions.
Can I have a quick gauge on who has heard of the term personal branding? Okay. As always, whether it be Northern Ireland, the UK, we're almost a little slow to show up the part. Personal branding has been absolutely massive in America, and it's growing and growing. One almost perfect example of that, to not sort of gauge on political side is anything, Donald Trump. One man who has almost divided a nation and a world through his own personal brand. Whether you agree with his principles or not, you have to admire that he has taken his brand and taken it almost to the forefront of the world, and is currently having a massive financial impact on the world off the basis of that. One strong principle I believe within personal branding is that no one asks a lottery winner on advice how to make money. And that, for me, builds a big basis there. So, how do I stand here and tell you about personal branding when you maybe don't know anything about me? So, a quick rundown of who I was. I spent 18 years in civil service. It was my secure, safe job. I took up photography as a hobby. Someone one day in the gym asked, I hear you take some photos. Would you take photos of me? I said, not a problem. I took a few photos. We posted them to social media. Someone messaged and asked, how much do you charge for a photo shoot? And that was the beginning of the career that has now spanned over 10 years. I started off doing bodybuilders, physiques, things like that, but then also brought that introduction to what mainstream sort of fitness photography could do for general people. I realized that if I marketed towards an individual and got one photo shoot, I would get one client. But then I realized for everyone that wanted to do a transformation for a photo shoot needed a coach. I realized then if I marketed towards the coach and the benefits would be for the coach in their business, that coach would then send me multiple different clients over the space of the year. I also realized that if I market towards a coach and provide a coach with marketing material that they can make money off, they will value it more and they will invest more and they will come back more. As opposed to a bodybuilder who technically didn't have any money and comes with all of sort of the ego side of things as well. I've been doing that now for the last 6 or 7 years, and I've now positioned that rather than just, as you've seen the boom on online coaching off the back of COVID and things like that, you've seen it's almost become a saturated market. So how does someone stand out within a saturated market or a red ocean, as the principle would go? And a lot of time for me, your best selling point is who you are. We see a lot of posturing on social media. We see a lot of people talking about their successes, they're showing off their materialistic sides, the things that they purchased and things. But for me, I would always be more interested in, rather than how someone has spent their money, I'd be more interested in how they made their money. So again, that takes me back to the point of no one asks a lottery winner on how to make money, because if it came easy, there was nothing to be learned. And we position ourselves on our experience and on our journey, on our expertise. I sometimes look at a personal brand as almost a journey of someone's own personal development. And I know that you had sort of alluded to the same earlier on, in the terms it's all about growth and development in terms of that. And again, to go along the lines of what we talked about collaboration, a personal brand is also all the people that you have interacted with. I see people that are almost what I refer to as like a social hand grenade. You can just roll them into the room, they'll go off, and they'll connect with everybody in there. But we believe, particularly in this day and age, that everyone that runs a business should be an expert in social media. But that's not the case for me. Because I believe that people that, for example, once you get to a level of business, you allocate out your accounts to someone like Martin. Someone who's better at what they do and can take the stress out of a really stressful element to your job for someone else. And I see social media in the same as that. But for me, being an introvert, I have a real problem just walking up to someone I don't know, introducing myself and saying hello. It's just something I have trouble with. But one thing I've done over the years is build up my personal brand. So a lot of the time, my brand does my introductions for me. That if you walk into a room, you're not really sure who's going to be there, and you feel that apprehension about walking up and saying hello, your brand can do those introductions for you. They're not going to go off and work in another business. They're going to work when you don't. While you lie in bed, your personal brand can work for you. Not only that, they can be all around the world, particularly given social media, when you can't be. So it's almost, in terms of it, is an incredible asset because it will work 24/7 and will never complain about having to work too much or burn out. If no one has ever been challenged and everything has come easy for them, what have they got to teach other people? What can they share in terms of their lessons? And I know in business sometimes they talk about the analogy of that a failed CEO is more of a benefit than a successful one, because we never really know if a successful one has ever been challenged, if they have faced adversity, whereas a failed one comes with lessons that they have learned. I love quotes. They are like a mental bookmark for me. They put me very quickly into a frame of mind. I see people question personal brand as, is it about becoming famous? For me, it's not. Personal brand is more about actually being found than being famous. I believe it's about being heard as opposed to being seen. We live in a culture now that's very much around social media. I have worked in social media for 10 years now. I see massive benefits on it, but I also have fears around it and what impact it will have on not just our generation moving forward, but the generations below us. It's offered the opportunity to compare our lives in so many different ways with so many other people, and a lot of the time people are only putting out their highlights and pretending that everything is rosy. But I do see people, particularly with the advancements in AI, that people are looking for a little more authenticity. And I don't believe that anyone can try and be authentic. I've heard people talk about, I try to be authentic. There is no try in authenticity. The things that make you who you are the things that are going to allow you to attract people like you. One of the taglines we use within our business a lot is that your content is a magnet. What you post, you attract. And almost through that content, sometimes you want to be able to polarize your audience. And again, we can go back to Donald Trump. He has done that so well for his benefits. And even again, when you can almost divide your audience for your market into two segments, the people you do want to work with and the people you don't. So when you can put you and your journey into your personal brand, some people may be aligned with it, some people may not. But again, that in itself is serving you for what you want to get from your content. Again, another tagline is, your content is your doorman. Your content is a magnet, but also it's your shop window. Although the days of the high street are almost diminishing, but again, we still believe in that principle that we would have walked down a high street, looked in a window and seen like a clothing shop and tried to imagine ourselves in it. I read once that sometimes shops would have almost positioned a mannequin to head height, that when you looked in the reflection of the window, you'd have seen your face reflect where the mannequin would have been. To almost imagine someone in that. So again, it's using the power of storytelling, using the power of your story to allow you to be separated within your industry. Allow your story and your brand to basically then separate you to be that you are the person with the experience, that you have faced challenge, that you have overcome that challenge and you've learned the lessons from that, and then those lessons are now what sets you apart. One thing I have seen, and we mentioned about posturing, I've seen a lot of people almost portray themselves through social media to be someone that they think that everyone wants them to be. I know that there is a saying that we are not who we think we are not who people think we are who we think people think we are. And so we don't actually know what people want from us. And we end up sort of losing sight of who we are. And for me, I've seen a lot of people get very tired having to play a role or a persona that they have created for themselves in social media because they believe that is what people wanted. But even when you've built up your business and your social media around that principle, it means then that every time that someone comes in to work with you as part of your business, it means then you have to again assume that role and play a role, which can be very tiresome, very areas you're drawing to take it from. So if I can leave you with one thing, you, your story, and who you are, the challenges that you have faced and what you have learned from them is your greatest marketing tool. And your personal, when you integrate that into your personal brand, that is what's going to allow you to stand out, but also attract people that you are going to be comfortable working with every single day. So it's easy to say, just be yourself, but honestly, it is probably the best thing that you could do for your brand and your business.
Ali, is it okay if I ask, what is the most common admin or tech bottleneck you see in small businesses, and how do you help people solve?
The big thing is to have a system from the start, and very simple stuff, like if you're using a Microsoft email, to use all the Microsoft suite, if you have a Gmail, to use all the Google suite, and that you have those systems in place and you build on that, from the very start.
Can I ask?
Absolutely, please.
Do you find it's a barrier for people to be able to let go of everything?
Yes.
That they built the business up themselves from the ground up and they have that control manner?
Yeah.
How difficult is that for you?
Well, it's quite easy because I am a total control freak. And I think that's really why I'm good at the job, because I realise it is hard. It's all those things you just said, it's hard for people to let go. And I have to prove to them, even if I do a little task, that I am trustworthy and I'll deliver it and I'll do it. And then they go, okay, that was okay. I'll give you a wee bit more. And then they go, actually, I've got some marketing I need doing, or, there's other things. And then they start to let go of everything. And then that's when you really grow your business.
Yeah. So it comes back to relationship.
Yes. It always does. Thank you, Alan. I really appreciate it. Martin, can I ask you, what do you think, what's, in your opinion, what is the biggest mistake people make when it comes to personal branding?
Again, it's easy to fall back on the authenticity part, but a lot of it, well, to be honest, I would say the biggest problem is people comparing themselves to other people on social media. Not just in the comparison of what they are doing, things, but also what their content is. It's this expectation that you will see someone and portraying themselves as this fantastic success, but almost right, I have to do exactly what they've done. And I would have always joked within the coaching space, coaches follow too many coaches. And it influences on how they produce their content and things and everything else. They'll see a lot of people cover one subject and then assume that everyone knows about that subject. But not that many general population follow lots of online coaches. Why would they? So a lot of the time, it's just basically follow your own idea. And sometimes I liken it to an analogy of driving into Belfast at rush hour. You will see cars jump from one lane to the next lane, the next lane. As soon as you move from one lane, that lane you're in starts moving faster. Yeah, and you think, right, gotta get back in there. And I see people do that with their social media, their branding so much. They see someone else do something different and they automatically think, I have to jump on that and do that as well. And when you do that continuously, there is no continuity, there is no message, and then there's just constant sort of chaotic confusion through there. Where very much we know that when someone picks what they want to be doing, what they want to be known for, and are 100% consistent with that, that's where true confidence and true branding comes.
Yeah, and it definitely resonates with me, because I mentioned there before about me and Sean on LinkedIn and how Gavin was going, keep at it. And I'm not joking. 3 years after a post, someone will reach out to us and say, I've been watching you. I don't know about some of you, but this happens to us all the time. Someone will reach out and say, I've been watching your guys' stuff for a while. I've been meaning to reach out to you. And it's the consistency. Otherwise, if the consistency wasn't there, they would have never maybe had that trigger point to say, we need them now to help us.
We would almost call them lurkers. People that just sit and watch and take in all your content but never actually reach out.
Yeah.
I think one potential barrier for people through their social media in particular is that they talk about work non-stop. Particularly in the coaching space, that if someone is in a position they need to ask for help, it's very hard to ask a stranger for help. So it's almost, again, this is why you need to put yourself into your content stuff. So you're a wee bit more personal. It makes that opening easier for people. But sometimes you will still find that people won't ask the question that they really need to ask. And this is why almost it could be posting a picture of you at your favourite coffee shop, a place you go with your family, anything else like that. Someone is more likely to reach out and go, oh, I've been there. I've been to that coffee shop. I've been there with my kids. That's lovely. And all of a sudden, that initial barrier of that first contact has been removed. And the likelihood of that conversation leading on to something else is going to be more, it's going to happen more often. And then once they've built a bit of rapport with you, they're more likely to ask for the question that they've been holding off.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Can I ask?
Of course, absolutely.
What's the secret sauce? I know it can take quite a while to build that momentum, and often a business owner might just lose faith in what they're doing and then change tack. What is the secret?
Again, I would just say it really comes down to your goals and who you want to work with. A lot of people just throw content out and just throw it at a wall and hope it sticks. And their main goal is views. If social media in itself has been gamified, it's almost for anyone who would have started playing computer games back in the day, it's always just chasing a higher score. And it's almost in terms of that. And that's why the likes, the views are all very visible there. So then you can chase that sort of accomplishment of something. But almost in doing so, you lose sight of what it is you actually want. And what you want to is be known for something, is to connect with the people that you want to work with in your business. And ultimately, if that is knowing that main goal and also the people you want to work with and the problem you are solving. So it's very easy now to look around social media and people are creating attention-grabbing content that's maybe taking 2 or 3 extracts from someone falling and getting them over. But again, if you don't have your message dialed in, if you don't know what the problem is that you solve for people and who you want to solve it for, it's going to be switched on. So I seen something recently, in the space of a month, people will scroll the height of the Empire State Building or the Eiffel Tower. And that's how quickly, zoom, 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 zoom. And everyone's kind of trying to catch that attention really quickly. But even still, it's almost a case of when they grab that attention, what is it you're actually selling? What is it you're actually saying there in order to be sold? But it's also as well, this is why there's now going to be a big shift towards longer form content, like YouTube and things like that. Because although you won't get as many views through that, the people that do sit down through that content are going to be a lot. The easiest term to describe it is going to be a warmer lead, because they've actually taken the time to sit down. Whereas someone in the TikTok generation that's constantly, you're literally getting their attention for 2 seconds, and particularly your service and what you do, if you want to solve that problem, you're going to need more than 2 seconds of their attention to do it. So you almost want to get to the people that have a need that's willing to sit down and absorb a wee bit more.
I heard recently that a lot of the big socials are thinking about taking away seeing the number of followers that you have. Mm-hmm. And some of you may know more about this, or someone in the crowd may know more about this, but basically it's because the algorithms in AI has become so advanced now that they realise that bigger numbers doesn't necessarily mean more influence.
Apparently the algorithm has got so smart now at analysing what you watch, it no longer looks like, people no longer like or follow content, because subconsciously you now know that the algorithm will see if you like something about kittens falling out of a tree and you've watched 3 of those, it's going to automatically give you more. So you no longer believe that, right, if I want to see more kittens falling out of a tree, I better like that page and follow that page so it gives me more. So the algorithm has actually got to that point now where it instinctively knows what you've watched. So people are not necessarily building up people that they follow or liking stuff anymore. And again, for me, I've never had a client reach out that has seen a piece of content, that's hit like, left a comment, then went to the inbox, and then sent me a message and went, hey, I'd like to talk to you. I would much rather they just go straight to the inbox.
Yeah.
And that's where it is.
Yeah, cool. It's really valuable, thank you. Suzanne, I'm really interested to know, why do you think community is such an important factor in co-working success?
Community within the space itself. Because people, the whole reason for them being there and not working from home is to see people, to build those relationships. But they want to be in a space where they align with those people as well. So again, it actually comes back to onboarding and making sure that people gel with each other and that they're engaging with each other. And it doesn't mean they're all in a space like this the whole time. They can be in their offices at different times, but it's those casual collisions, we call them, the serendipitous moments, where they just bump into each other in the kitchen, for example, And I think it's really important if you're a solopreneur or a small business owner, there's so many hats that you have to wear that you can't possibly know everything all of the time. And there's so many things that we don't know that we really need to know that you find out in these spaces. And there's so many diverse skills all under one roof, but it's like an organic network, a really natural network ecosystem.
So it can only add value, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the wider localities and communities as well for the businesses.
Yeah.
Can I jump in for a second? I'm going to coin a phrase here, productivity guilt. I think one of the questions I have was, so when you come to these places, how do you actually get anything done? And it's a serious question because there's this obsession with productivity. My wife and I work from home off the back of the pandemic, and she's always coming home. She used to win once a week now in the civil services. Oh, I got nothing done today. Just chatting people. And that's the whole point, because not never worry, but my question goes back to the very start is, how do you get over that productivity guilt whenever you're coming to places like this? Because I know when I go home today what I've got to do. I've got at least a half a day's work to do, so...
I think it's coming in with a reason to be coming in for. So it's, I want to put my head down in an office. If you've got an office, it's much easier. You've got your private space.
Yeah.
There's the unspoken rule in our space. Put your headphones in if you don't want people disturbing you. It doesn't always happen, but generally it does. There's also a stigma in co-working spaces that all it is parties, coffees. It's not like that.
Yeah.
I think as a general rule, most people just get their heads down and get on with what they're doing. But there's the opportunity, if you want that, to go in the kitchen, grab a coffee. There's always somebody in there. Yes, there are events. And there's lots of different environments within the buildings that are productive to different people at different times of the day. So I guess it's kind of an unspoken rule in these spaces that you don't disturb people if they don't want disturbed, and you kind of get to know who wants to speak all the time and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think too, because I used to work in a co-working space in Belfast once a month or once a week when I was in Moira, and I think the thing was I was in Moira at home by myself a lot, and I went to the co-working space also because it was that sort of thing of being aware of the opportunities there were and talking to people and hearing conversations about, well, that's very interesting. And actually, even if you think about, yes, you're going into a co-working space to work, but to also have your ears open to hear what's going on.
Opportunity antenna.
Yes.
I think it's much more of a structured environment as well.
Yeah. So this is a bit depressing because I came here for casual collections and the party, so I'm just depressed.
She didn't say there's not room for that.
I definitely don't feel guilty.
Just not all of it. And look, I mean, this was the hope that it would be a very casual, very welcome to go ahead and ask questions. Feel free if you have a question. Collie.
Yep. My name is Collie Graham, Sales Excellence, not Ireland's number one. I was going to say Northern Ireland, then I changed that. Number one sales training consultancy. And I learned that introduction 20 odd years ago from a guy called Martin Gilchrist. He says, if you go to a networking event, stand up and before you ask a question, tell them who you are. So that's it. And I was reminded by Johnny, reminded me as a one-man business is very like Columbus. Columbus set sail for the West. He didn't know where he was going. When he got there, he didn't know where he was. And when he got home, he didn't know where he had been. And it was all funded by a woman, the Queen of Spain. But the question really is for Martin. One of the things, Martin, and I was thinking, as you were talking, one of the things that I would go to the UK to sell my services, and I'm up against large international sales training companies. And they used to ask me, what do we get when we get sales excellence? And I would always say, you're going to get something that those other companies won't give you. And they go, what's that? And I said, me. So how would you expand on that, Martin?
You're almost using an example I would use myself in terms of there's one piece of equipment that every photographer, content creator brings to a shoot or an event, and it's themselves. It's the connections they are to they are. I would have always got a lot of feedback from people to say that I made them feel very comfortable in front of the camera. Whereas a lot of the time I was like, I wanted to get feedback on the image is fantastic, that one's amazing, stuff, everything else. But slowly but surely over time, I realized someone's biggest apprehension about getting their photo taken or being in front of the camera for video is how they are. And particularly, a confident image needs a confident subject. And if they're not comfortable in front of that camera, they can't carry across. So very much as you say, it's who you are. It's what you bring to the table. A lot of the time for me, it's my ability to just make someone feel at ease in terms of that. But one thing I've done over the years is by trying to set myself apart from other content creators is rather than just hand someone an image and say, there's your image, but give them a little support in terms of if you were to use that image in this context, on this platform, in that way, and anything else, they'll get a lot more value from that. So again, a lot of the time, it comes back to the additional stuff that you bring to the table. And again, for me, the biggest thing you bring to any situation is your past, is the stories, the meetings, the people that you've got to learn. And one piece of advice I will give to anyone is your greatest source of content is the conversations you have with your clients, particularly your best clients. If you want to sort of put a direction down in terms of your marketing or where you want to go, I would always say, imagine who of your current client base would you happily clone over and over and over again. That if you can only let one or two people into a situation alongside you, who would those be that you feel most comfortable with? And then go back and do your market research. Ask them why. Why was it you reached out to me in the first place? What was it you were struggling with? What was the things about me that made you reach out? And if someone comes back and gives you 3 or 4 attributes about you personally and how you deliver something, those are the attributes that you should put out through your social media more, because it makes perfect sense. The more you do, the more you're going to attract those people that you want to work with. So the short answer to your question is your journey, your experience, every conversation you've ever had, any struggle you've ever been through, the successes you've learned from those and stuff and everything else, that and your ability to be able to share that beforehand is what people are going to choose you over those bigger. They say there's a difference. A personal brand, a business brand is completely different. A business brand is no emotion, there's no person behind it. Obviously makes sense. A personal brand is that people will buy people a lot sooner.
Yeah, that's true, Martin. I lost a sale to a large sales training company in the UK, and 6 weeks after that, 8:30 in the morning, I got a phone call from the MD, he called me my old fart of a friend. That's the relationship he ended up with. And he phoned me 8:30 in the morning and he says, L.B, he says, I made a massive mistake. And I said, sorry, what happened? He says, I should have hired you, the strange one. He called me the strange one. He said, I should have hired you instead of the company. I made a major mistake. Can you come back in? And my goodness, I had something like a 5-year contract with that company. I think about 4 times a year, and it was nearly 50% of my annual earnings from that one particular company. And that was just because I went and what you get is me.
Yeah.
And that's important.
I know exactly as you're telling that story. That for me is the content you should create around your personal brand. Those little stories that stand for you are, even the term, the strange one, it sets you apart. I know you talk about sort of introductions and things like else. I read somewhere that networking for introverts, it was almost to brand yourself with a tagline that leaves a bit of ambiguity about it. And I know that I at one point joked with the one of, if someone says, what is it you do? I says, I'm a brand broker. And be like, and what's that? And it's almost an invite for you to explain what it is. If you bumped into someone that says, what is it you do? I'm in life insurance. It's kind of like, yeah, okay. Thanks very much. I kind of know instantly what you do. Yeah. But to create that ambiguity. But again, that sense what you said, I'm the strange one, that would instantly for me open up a question of, why are you called the strange one? Mm-hmm. Tell me a little more. And all of a sudden, you can move into a position where you actually start selling yourself. But they've been the one that's invited you to do so. When you create your content, like you said, there specifically towards a person, it's going to feel like, I feel like you're reaching out to me personally. That's going to mean so much more and be so much more valuable to them.
Suzanne, how do you see hybrid and remote work shaping the business landscape in the years ahead?
It's a hard one to answer because the news at the moment is telling us hybrid working is a no-go. Everyone should be back in the office, but that's not what we're seeing. Certainly across Europe, not necessarily Ireland, but across Europe, there's still a lot of 3 days at home, 2 days in the office, or vice versa. What we're seeing in our co-working space, we've got quite a few corporate remote workers who have an office or a desk space with us, but they're there 2 days a week and in London. So there's still that mix there. We are not seeing as many people working from home 5 days a week anymore. So I think the jury's out on that.
Yeah.
You know, the big bosses are saying, no, this can't work, this working from home mark. But I don't agree with that at all.
No, it's definitely a debate, certainly with clients of ours, and certainly plenty of you guys will agree that it's a bit of a debate and moving a little bit, because it becomes part of the package, that people expect now when they're moving into a new role, where, well, my previous role allowed me to work at home 3 days a week. Can I not have the same thing? And certainly our clients are finding that.
They call it, when you're looking at those job specs now, they call it flex washing, not greenwashing, it's flex washing. They give you all this blurb about working from home, and it just doesn't.
See, we're learning.
When you're in London and you're commuting, say, on a Monday or Friday, there's no one on the trains, there's no one in the offices, certainly in the city centre. They're working from home Mondays and Fridays, for sure. Or they need a really good reason to go into the office on a Friday, other than typing away. It has to be specific.
Road traffic would be enough for me.
Yeah, parties. Yeah. There's a lot of them on Friday.
Can I have a question for Martin, please? Because we're so good at hiding our lights under a bushel in this part of the world, how do you strike a balance between that confidence, whenever you're speaking to people in your tone of voice, and arrogance and cockiness?
I've heard it described as humble bragging.
Yeah.
If you can't, personally, I have struggled taking pride in any of my achievements. It's probably handed down to me from my mother and father in the terms of don't be showy, don't show off, things like that. But again, that makes it hard sometimes for me. But again, if you're helping people and serving people, celebrating their wins, like client testimonials, client success stories, share those things, and just, if you need to, just say the contribution that you made to that through it, rather than taking sole responsibility for it. But again, it's not getting drawn in to it. Social media is very difficult in terms of we all spend too much time on it and probably see too much. But I think people need to curate their social media more than they create it. If you were sitting watching a TV show this evening and it made you uncomfortable, you didn't like it, you turn it off, and you wouldn't watch it again. But people continually expose themselves to certain people on social media and things that makes them feel inferior or insecure or anything else like that, or just simply distracts them. And for me, it's like, if there's content that distracts you, simply hit the unfollow button that was as quick as it was to hit follow, and just remove them from there. So in terms of how much social media, what you expose yourself to create the potential then of comparison or just distraction away from certain things, I think that's one thing to do.
Great.
Excellent.
Great answer.
Ali, it's a similar question. Hopefully it's not just a difficult question, because I appreciate that it can be. But how do you see the role of virtual support evolving in the next few years?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I started out, I really struggled getting across the term that virtual assistant, what a virtual assistant was. And Maria and Oisin now from Admin Answers, I think you have an easier time now that people get it. And the pandemic totally changed that, because I used to be in a PA network in Belfast, and it was me and PAs from big organisations in Belfast. And when I was there, because I was the only virtual assistant, everybody was like, oh my God, how does that work? Then the pandemic came, and all the PAs were working from home and going, okay, we're all virtual assistants now. And I think it is with the whole hybrid thing working, that has totally changed. And even those ladies I know, a lot of them are still working from home, and their boss now can go, okay, well, you've got your laptop at home, it can work. I think the whole thing about having your own space at home and how much, employers should contribute to that, and electricity costs, that's a whole other conversation, but yeah, it's doable.
Andrew, I can see your hand up there.
Andrew Loudon, Business Mentor. Just for Ali, I was just interested to know, VAs have been around for a few years now, and I was just interested to know, obviously, I assume you get embedded in organisations and probably been asked to do more and more in many respects. Mm-hmm. So how do you balance that, or how many clients can you take on? How much time would you spend with one client? I'm sort of intrigued just to know how that has developed over the last 15, 20 years, or however long it is.
Well, I think because I specialise in events and online course creation, mine are projects, so people would come to me just as a project when maybe they have other staff in-house, but they can't do that.
When I got my first biggest UK client, I went in with a blank sheet of paper, and the question I asked was, how will you measure the success of your training? What needs to happen for this training to be successful? So they just gave me this shopping list. I wrote it down. I just nodded my head, and I won the training. And they came to the country house in Cahills, and I delivered it there. They played around the golf at Galgorm and had some team building. I asked them afterwards, why did you choose me? They said two things. First of all, you jumped on an aeroplane and went to see them in Slough. They were next door where they filmed The Office. And he says the second thing, you were the only company who didn't come in and do a PowerPoint presentation of what you're going to do. You asked us what we needed. And anybody in sales, I always say, never tell people what you do. Ask them what they need.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
There's a lot of prescription before diagnosis.
Yeah.
I already know what you need before I've even asked what you're
Yeah,
struggling
exactly.
with.
Yeah.
Because it's more a case of, this is what I want to give you, not what you need.
Bring it back to you, Martin. Have you ever worked on a shoot or a project that had a bigger impact than you expected?
Yeah, but sometimes it's hard. Within content, it's hard, particularly in terms of branding, that everyone thinks about, I'm going to post a video, I want to see how many views that video gets. But a nice piece of content will always work for you. It'll be evergreen. But as well as that, I always find that if someone is going to make a snap decision to work with you, they can make just a quick snap decision to leave and not work with you. I always want someone to do a bit of due diligence. I want them to know about things and everything else and come to that conclusion so it lasts a little bit longer. So again, it's almost your content or the video content you create or photos almost all contributes into that overall brand, which allows for that basis to be built up over time. We had actually one piece within the last 2 weeks. A gentleman approached us. He wanted to tell a bit of his background story that he's never told anyone. And it was very much a very insecure piece about him, that he had, during COVID, he had a psychotic breakdown and walked the streets of London for 3-4 days. He was arrested. He thought he was part of a conspiracy. And he was arrested because he was trying to break into an escape room because he thought this was part of his training to earn his position in this agency. He was taken and arrested and imprisoned for 8 weeks. And it was only afterwards he got out, he had another psychotic breakdown. He was then taken into a mental hospital and identified as that there was issues going on. The conviction itself was overturned because they realised that he was going through a psychotic break and it was never sort of factored into the arrest or the judgment or anything. The thing is, he's now come on, he's now got himself qualified as a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist. He now helps people be in the position he once was. But he's been tentative up to this point because he didn't want to tell people that in case of what they would come across. So we brought him into our studio. We filmed an hour's worth of content of him talking. We're going to release it in 4 separate episodes. So it's a longer form content like we talked about. But we put out a recap because he was afraid if I tell you the beginning of the story, you don't get to hear the rest. What will it leave you thinking of me? So we basically put out a very short, quick snippet, 90 seconds, 2 minutes long, talking about the journey and asking people to sit through that journey for the rest of it. And just yesterday, he sent us a screenshot and he says, I know it's not about views, but he posted that to YouTube and he's had 19,000 views on YouTube in the last 6 days. He has 9 subscribers. And to be honest, now, you hear viral content a lot these days, and it's a lot about TikTok and things like else. A view is technically a 1 second, and then move on. But for someone, for anyone that does watch YouTube, when you sit down to YouTube, you're committing a wee bit more time as opposed to just standing in a queue to flick through reels or anything else like that. But for me, then, it's a big thing to realise that he's got 19,000 views from a platform like YouTube to sit down, but also for me to come back and say that he feels we've lifted a big weight off his shoulders, that he's allowed to be able to tell part of his story that he was very apprehensive to and didn't know how to go down with friends, family, current clients, and stuff and else. So that's probably of recent, that's been a big one for us.
I want to give another opportunity for a question from the audience. If
Hello, it's Vivian Ferguson here. I'm process automation engineer, saving businesses time. Question for yourself, Martin, on call to action. It can be a bit confusing about where to put it in your video and what call of action that you want to put in. So is it your phone number? Is it contact us form? And whereabouts in the video should that go?
Call to action is very important. I spoke about this earlier. If you walk into any good retail store or anything else like that, someone will come up and ask, can I help you? It's just a quick introduction that you're not left to sort of wander about on your own. People have hesitation with call to action. One, I hear a lot is, I don't want to come across as desperate. Two, I don't want to come across as salesy. And there's one thing that I will say, and forgive the tone of it, but if God needs salesmen on a Sunday, the omnipotent, the all-powerful, needs someone to stand in front of a church on a Sunday and talk about how good he is, there is no one who's above sales. If Coca-Cola or the biggest brands in the world are still advertising and still marketing for where they are, no one is above sales. So in terms of being hesitant to just say, can I help? You need to be able to put that out there. Some people need to be seen to see a helping hand being offered. In terms of it, it could be simply down, and what that should really be down to the terms of your systems, your funnels. Are you looking to take someone in through to a website to have the website do the work for you? Are you looking to have a lead magnet for email collections and stuff and everything else? The call to action should direct them where the next point is for the journey that you want to take them down.
Yeah.
Is it a call? Is it anything else like that? It's just to be there. But for me, the call to action, it doesn't necessarily have to be at a specific point.
Mm-hmm.
It could be earlier on, because sometimes if you're going to lose someone's attention, they'll get them across.
Mm-hmm.
It could be earlier on. Say, look, I want to give you an offer to help, but let me explain why. So the call to action is almost going in the front door. But then you're enticing them to learn longer. But again, what's the last thing you want them to do off the back of the video? Do you want them to swipe to the next video? Or do you want them to take that action? So again, there's reasons for having it at the end of the video as well. But I do believe people need to have a good call to action. And it doesn't need to be book now, buy from me. It could be even just a question. For me, for example, how do you want your band to talk about you? And that just leaves them thinking. And then when the question's posed there, if I've done what I should through my content, they see me as the answer.
So would you say it should feel natural and frictionless then?
Yeah. I think people just, if you're uncomfortable with sales or anything else like that, you just need to get comfortable with the fact that, I joke that if someone had a cure for COVID in the early days of COVID, but was just afraid to be salesy and tell someone, how many lives, how many discomfort would they have had? Sometimes if you have the benefit, who are you not to offer the services and the help that you can to people out there? And it's just a case of putting your hand up and letting them know that you can do it.
I think it's if you believe in it, isn't it? If you truly believe, if you went so far and care enough about what you do or why you think you're unique, they deserve to know about it, and that's where you usually get salespeople who unapologetically will drop it into a conversation or, highlight what they are. There was another question just in the middle from a gentleman. Do you want to ask it?
Robert Bradford's by it from Unity IT. We do cybersecurity audits for my sales.
Good on you.
What part of your work will you never give to AI?
Good question.
Until you have a choice in 3 years.
Personally, I would never give any information on our members other than the business. The business that they're representing. I wouldn't give.
Maybe your tasks. What tasks?
I see what
in
you
your
mean.
work?
Probably the likes of personal branding. Wouldn't want to hand over decisions to AI.
Yeah.
But the more personal side?
There is a lot that you can do with terms of AI now in the personal branding side, even like ChatGPT. People just think, give me 5 content suggestions, boom, and that's it. But you can actually build out your own ChatGPT. I've done that. I've uploaded probably 5 to 10 hours worth of content of me speaking and what I've talked about. The content that I have my videographer filming today, I'm going to put that into my ChatGPT. So there's things that I've spoke about today that I've maybe not mentioned before, but I'm going to put that into my ChatGPT and basically say, analyze everything I said today and incorporate that into any time I ask you for any queries or anything else like that. So there's a lot there. I know that for team, I also know in terms of team, I've seen people who've done that all their content, all their direction stuff, particularly for the likes of what you do, that online coaches that are maybe have upwards of 15 to 20 virtual assistants doing outbounding, call answering and stuff like that, that rather than someone constantly go back and go, I don't know how to answer this question, that they have put all their recorded content and stuff into AI, built out one that's almost them and says, right, and then the VA team is told, if you have a question, ask the AI assistant first. So it's about not assuming that ChatGPT as a whole is based on the internet of everything that's out there, stuff from 10, 20 years ago, outdated, it's wrong and stuff, whereas you can hone that down again, almost like building your own AI personal brand, the information in there. But I do think there is a point where it becomes you. I don't believe anyone will ever be accountable to AI. I remember fitness space when step counters came out, and everyone thought, if I have a watch that counts my steps, I'm going to get in shape. But slowly but surely just began to ignore it. Particularly even for me, within the coaching space, or whether it's fitness or anything, when you believe you're accountable to someone personally, that's what makes you keep showing up over and over again. And I believe that personal accountability is something that will never be replaced by AI.
In my case as well, and you touched on, like I was talking to someone the other day, a physiotherapist who'd set up an AI agent to make calls and fed them all that information. And for me, when I have sort of discovery calls with clients, I don't think I'll give up that bit of me talking to someone and that the real sort of human element of that, and the personal touch that I would bring to that. But there are lots of other things definitely that will go AI way. Yeah. I was in San Francisco last May and I went to an AI conference and someone said to me, well, your name's Virtually. Have you an app for that? Or is Virtually your app? And I thought, no, but I thought, oh my God,
that's a good idea.
To me, again, almost in terms of, I am biased on the side of if your profile is solely built. Again, it's like hiding behind graphics, hiding behind logos or anything else like that, and no one gets to see your face. There's no personal connection. And again, if you're using AI video, AI photography and stuff and everything else, there's no that personal connection. Personally, I would never choose a restaurant that only advertised AI imagery of their food, because I just wouldn't trust it. So it's like, I want to see what your food really looks like to go in. Now, we know McDonald's is famous for making their Big Macs this height in their pictures and they never come that size. But again, with that sort of side of, when there's an element of trust that needs to be there, I don't think AI will replace that either.
Yeah. I think every people-centered business needs that human touch point.
Yeah.
There's a lot the AI can do. But it's like, how far do we let that go with a human-centered business so that they can take your voice? For me, that's...
Yeah, it can never know emotional intelligence.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the Mr. Vivian YouTube channel, and don't forget that there's a new episode of the Time Seekers Way podcast coming out this Friday featuring Dawn from Wilby Jones, who will be talking to me about business grants. It's one that's certainly not to be missed. Thanks for watching.